Good day everyone, especially to our beloved instructress, Mrs. Carla Joy Palaris. I am Rosalyn Joy Parce, Bachelor of Secondary Education, your future language educator. So today, we will be discussing one of the issue in teaching grammar, which is the sequencing. But before we proceed to the main topic, let me give you a brief description of grammar. Grammar is the way on which meaning are encoded into the wording English language. This includes the structure of words, phrases, clauses, sentence, and the whole text. As we go on to our journey, let us always bear in mind the following objective we must achieve. First, you must able to know and understand the grammatical sequencing. Second, you must able to know the importance of sequencing in teaching grammar. And third, you must able to practice sequencing in grammar to avoid grammatical errors. So now, come and join me. Let us discover how really important sequencing to avoid grammatical errors. Grammar teaching involves any instructional technique that draws learners' attention to some specific grammatical form in such a way that it helps them either to understand it metalinguistically and or process it in comprehension and or production so they can internalize it. In grammar studies, some sentences are simpler and therefore easier than the others. The various approaches to teach English deal with the problem of sequencing or the arranging item from easier to harder in various ways. Textbook within the grammar translation method, direct method, and audiolingual method determine a sequence of sentence pattern from simple to complex according to grammatical criteria alone, or the arranged lesson around that sequence. According in dictionary, sequencing or sequence is a specific orders in which things occur. So when we say sequence, it's all about the succession of the word. We need to know what and where do we put that word. For example, man, in order for us to create sentence without making mistake in grammar. Most second language English instructors will agree that the sequence of the presentation as well as the presentation itself is especially important for beginning level English learners to acquire fluency and avoid fossilization of basic grammar errors. And one of the significant way of raising grammatical awareness in both children and adults is by presenting grammar activities in a sequence way, as Boston suggests. Boston suggests sequencing of grammar learning activities have 3 stages: the noticing, structuring, and proceduralizing. Noticing is when a student becomes aware of a specific structure and works on the relationship between form and meaning. Structuring is when a learner brings the new grammar structure or pattern in his internal grammar. Proceduralizing, helping the learners to reach a stage of making grammar which is ready to be used fluently in communication. Proceduralizing questions require sustained practice in using grammar when the reins have been loose and when learners are negotiating their own meanings.
And now, let's proceed to the other parameters.
The sequencing of other grammatical features, noun, prepositions, question forms, and etc. is determined by the content of the conversations, while sequencing according to grammatical complexity is of great concern to EFL, ESL textbook authors. They consider other parameters as well. As you can see from the expressway example, the usefulness to the student of words and phrases is very important. It's a very rare textbook, for example, that doesn't teach hello, how are you, fine, thanks, early on. Simple, because English speakers use these phrases time and time again during a day. The authors of English for Today chose to teach the question pattern What's this? In the first lesson, because it allows the student to ask vocabulary items, something the authors consider of use to the language student. Ease of explanation is another parameter, especially important in approaches and classrooms, where the student native language is not used. Sentence types that are put into the first few lessons have to have meanings which can be demonstrated or pantomimed. You might explain the difference in meaning between this and that in this way. This is a book, so the point to a book is in front of you. That's a book, so the point to a book is across the room. Another parameter is a progression from things the student knows to the things that the student doesn't know. It is standard practice, for example, to start out with the verb be in simple sentences, because they are easily demonstrated and occur with alarming frequency. It is also standard practice to go from be sentences to the present progressive. I am going, you are going, and etc. Because among other things, that tenses uses the form of be is the student has already learned. Overall, sequencing also refers to putting events or information in a specific order. The ability to sequence requires higher order thinking skills, from recognizing pattern to determining cause and effect and more. Sequencing also helps students understand and organize material they've learned, as well as help them to solve problems. So from this topic, understanding the sequencing in teaching grammar is very important because it helps us to avoid grammatical errors when we know how to succession the word and the events. So we should learn how to use the right grammar. The grammar is important because it is a language that makes it impossible for us to talk about language. And knowing sequencing grammar also helps us understand what makes sentences and paragraphs clear and interesting and precise. If we do not follow the sequencing in grammar, then the sentence will not make sense. In addition, this sequencing is one of many skills that contribute to student ability to comprehend what they read, and it is one of the important components of problem solving across subjects. And that will be all. I hope you've learned a lot from this topic. Thank you and have a great day ahead.